There is a kind of quiet that lingers after tragedy, an echo that never entirely fades. Mine began 10 years ago, the night the flood took Emily Carter. The storm wasn't supposed to be serious, just heavy rain and a few scattered branches. We even joked about it while brushing our teeth, her hand brushing mine, her smile catching me in the mirror. We were still in our early 40s, still young enough to dream about a retirement we hadn't earned yet. There was wine chilling, leftover lasagna in the fridge, and absolutely no warning the river would swallow half the town before midnight. We lived near Willow Bend Creek, a thin stream behind our fence, barely 15 feet across. But that night it surged like an angry sea. The sirens came too late. By the time we understood how quickly the water was rising, it was already slamming against the back door. I tried, to pull her toward the attic, but the porch collapsed and the current tore her from my grip. I screamed until my throat tore, but she vanished, swallowed by black water and storm. I moved away a few months later. Couldn't face the creek. Couldn't face the neighbors with their casseroles and well-meaning words. I found work 2 hours north, in a small, flat town where the sky stretched wide and the storms didn't sneak up from behind. That's where I found my house on the edge of Silver Hills Reserve, a gated community with strict architectural rules, security patrols, and a glossy brochure full of promises I didn't care about. I just wanted quiet. I wanted a place where I could build the thing I'd started sketching the night after Emily's funeral. A bunker. Not a military outpost or doomsday fantasy, just a hidden, reinforced safe room underground. A place where no siren would come too late again. A place where no one I loved would be pulled away by a disaster I couldn't fight. I began digging quietly. I had some engineering experience from my younger years in the Army, enough to understand loads, drainage, soil pressure. I applied for a general utility permit that didn't require many details, only that I wasn't disturbing utilities. Approved in less than a week. So I dug. For 8 months I worked early mornings and late evenings. I rented machinery under a friend's name so the HOA wouldn't snoop. I lowered prefabricated concrete panels into the ground piece by piece with a rented crane. In the end, the bunker was modest, 20 feet wide, 10 feet tall, stocked with food, water, a vent system, a solar backup, and a 2-foot-thick steel door. The entrance was a disguised hatch near the back fence, painted to match the grass. From the street, no one could see it. But you can't stay invisible forever. One morning, carrying ventilation pipes to the backyard, I saw her. The HOA president, Rebecca Becky Harden, though the neighbors called her Corinne behind her back. Clipboard in hand, jaw tight, dog leash wrapped around her wrist. "We've received complaints about unauthorized construction," she said without even greeting me. Everything I was doing was legal, but logic didn't matter. From that moment on, she targeted me. Notices, warnings, fines, demands for structural plans she had no right to request. The first fine was $250, then $500, then $1,000. A month later, they taped a bright orange violation notice to my front door accusing me of visual disruption. They claimed they saw a metallic hatch above grade, taken through the slats of my own fence. It didn't matter what the county allowed. Silver Hills believed its own laws were higher. I appealed, denied. I kept building anyway. I didn't care what they called my project, ugly, unsafe, paranoid. Every time I touched that hatch, I saw Emily being ripped away. I saw everything I'd failed to protect. This bunker was my promise that I'd never be helpless again. But the HOA wasn't done. Corinne and 2 board members, one of them Bob Jennings, a man built like a used boat salesman, showed up at dusk asking to inspect my property. I refused. They accused me of disrupting community vision. I accused them of being petty tyrants. The conversation ended with more fines and letters. Things escalated. In their next HOA meeting, Corinne publicly shamed me. She printed a blown-up photo of my hatch, called it a doomsday hole, and told the neighborhood I was destabilizing property values. When I tried to speak, she mocked me. When I said my wife died because we didn't have a safe place, the room went silent. But they didn't stop. Eggs were thrown. People whispered. A 12-year-old boy was the only one kind enough to ask if his family could come to my bunker in an emergency. I told him yes. Then one morning, I stepped outside and froze. Someone had covered my hatch with fresh sod, carefully, deliberately burying access to my bunker. They had attempted to destroy the very thing I'd built to save lives. I dug it out with numb hands. The cameras I'd installed caught two figures sneaking into my yard at 3:42 a.m. One with Bob's unmistakable limp, the other with Corinne's rigid posture. I filed a police report. Soon after, I hired a lawyer, Dana Pell, sharp and unafraid of HOA bullies. She filed restraining orders. In retaliation, the HOA filed a countersuit accusing me of harassment and defamation. Court didn't go their way. The judge ruled their fines were technically legal, but the trespassing and sabotage would be referred to the county prosecutor. Corinne stared at me afterward and whispered, "You won't win." But she was wrong. This wasn't about winning, it was about surviving. Winter came early. And with it came the Blue Meridian, a historic blizzard that arrived like a slow inhale, then slammed the state with catastrophic cold. Power lines collapsed. Water pipes burst. The entire grid failed. By the second night, homes in Silver Hills were dropping to dangerous temperatures. Mine went dark too, but the bunker stayed warm. That's when the knocking began. A father and his teenage daughter came first, faces blue with cold. Then an older man. Then a young woman with her dog. Then a couple from the cul-de-sac. By midnight, 11 people huddled inside my small underground room. I rationed food. I handed out blankets. Then at 1:13 a.m., someone pounded on the hatch with a fist. I cracked it open. Corinne stood there, makeup frozen to her face, breath hitching. "My heat is gone," she choked. "Please." I let her in. An hour later, Bob arrived, his hand purple with frostbite. I let him in too. By dawn, 15 people shared the bunker, and in the glow of dim LED lights I saw something I never expected: gratitude. The next day, even more people came, families, couples, strangers from 4 houses down begging for warmth. I helped every single one. Soon, 24 people squeezed into a space built for 4. The storm raged for days. At 3:27 a.m. on the second night, Corinne finally spoke. "Why didn't you tell me it was real?" she whispered. "We mocked you, we fined you, but you built something that saved us." I didn't gloat. I just said, "I built it so no one would die like Emily did." She apologized. The storm finally broke on the 4th day. Power would return within 48 hours. As people climbed out into the frozen, broken neighborhood, Corinne stayed behind. "I'll resign," she said quietly. "The HOA we destroyed trust. We won't do it again." She meant it. In the weeks that followed, the HOA elected a new president, Leanne Parker, a practical mother of 2 who cared more about safety than uniform mailboxes. She abolished the bylaw about aesthetic disruptions and created an emergency preparedness committee. She asked me to chair it. At first I refused. I didn't want a title, I just wanted peace. But when Leanne and her son showed up with a crate of canned goods asking if I'd help design a community shelter, I agreed. Because something had changed in me too. People began asking for help: how to build emergency kits, how to install backup heaters, how to prepare for storms. I started teaching workshops in the next town's old fire station. The first class had 3 people. Now they're packed. The bunker still stands, hidden under a green hatch, but now there's a second cot. Evan, the little grandson who nearly froze, visits every Saturday to help clean vents and restock supplies. He wants to be an engineer someday. Maybe he'll design shelters better than mine. Corinne still walks her dog past my house. She doesn't glare anymore, just nods politely. I nod back. I don't need her forgiveness. I already gave mine. The silence in my life is different now, not hollow, not heavy, just steady. The silence of a promise kept. They once called me crazy. Now they call me prepared. But titles don't matter. What matters is simple. I built a door. And when the world froze, I opened it. And that made all the difference.